What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. Today we are working on the Camaro. So since I put this LS in here, it's almost been 2 years now, believe it or not. I've been kind of on and off messing with my tune and my ECU. So the ECU that I have in the car right now is a Mega Squirt system. It's an MS3 Gold box from EFI Source to be exact. And it's been a pretty good ECU. I mean, it was easy to get fired up for the first time. It has been functioning well, but I have a bit of an issue. And the issue is mainly with me, but let me walk through it. So the issues I've been having with the car all surround the tune, and mainly the idle tune and the kind of hot start tuning. So with the MS3 Gold box and really any Mega Squirt or Micro Squirt system, you use what's called Tuner Studio, which is an open source tuning platform on your laptop to kind of set everything up. The beauty of that is it can be set up to run pretty much any fuel injected engine there is. The negative to that is it can be set up to run pretty much any fuel injected engine there is, which means there is a monumental amount of settings and things that you can change and tweak. And for someone like me who is not by any means a professional tuner, that overcomplicates a lot of things and has proven to be very difficult for me to get it all sorted out, just because there's just way too many options. It's way above my pay grade. So instead of having a professional tuner tune the car, I like to do everything myself. This most likely will not be my last LS swap, so I wanted to find a platform that's a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more user-friendly, so that I can really learn that particular tuning software and then can apply that in the future. So what I've decided to do is switch over to a Holley Terminator X. So this is the system I'm running. Like I mentioned, it's the Holley Terminator X. I didn't go with the X Max because I have a manual transmission, so I did not need transmission control. I think that's the main difference between the two. This is the ECU here. It's super small. I mean, you can see it's about the size of my hand. Really nice and compact unit. A good fit and finish. Full plug and play wiring harness, including the injector harness, power for the ECU, O2 sensor, extra inputs and outputs, and then their little handheld tuner. I'm really excited about this because with my current setup, I have to carry my laptop with me all the time. And it's just a big pain to have to pull out the whole laptop, open it up, change a setting. This will allow me to kind of change things on the go. It will also act as a little gauge for us to kind of monitor everything in a little compact package. So I think it's going to work quite a bit better than what we're working with now. So what I need to do now is go through the painstaking process of removing all of my existing wiring, the existing ECU, the O2 sensor, all of that stuff. Anything that's currently connected to that MS3 Gold box needs to go. So we have a nice clean starting point for the Holley system. Engine harness is fully removed. Also got the ECU and everything out of the inside of the car as well. Last thing on the list is the O2 sensor. I'm like 90% sure the one I have in the car now will work. The difference though is there are only 5 pins on my existing setup, and the O2 sensor that came with the Holley kit has 6 pins. So there's something else on here. I don't know if it's a heater or what it is, but I'm just going to go ahead and run exactly what came in this kit just to make sure we don't introduce any unintentional problems. So what I need to do is just jack up this driver's side of the car so I can access the O2 sensor, quick swap, and then we're ready to start installing everything else. The O2 sensor is in, so now we're ready to start installing everything. There's basically 3 main harnesses. There's one that is just a big power and ground cable that goes straight from the battery straight to the ECU. There's a small one, which is just for our injector harness. And then there's, of course, the big main harness that goes through the firewall as well. So what I'm going to do is start with power. Then we'll move on to just getting this injector harness done. Then we'll move on to the main event, which is this big boy here. Power and ground harness is done. I'm going to go ahead and knock out the injector harness next. It's just literally 8 injector plugs that are all numbered. And then this gray one just is going to connect into our main harness. After that, I'm going to start to lay out our main harness on the engine. So this section, those go to the ECU. I already got a grommet in place. There's a fuse and a relay, as well as a ground and a switched 12 volt. All of that's going to go inside the passenger compartment. So the firewall or the bulkhead or whatever you want to call it, it's going to be right around here. The rest of this is all, of course, going to be laying on top of the engine. So let me get this into place and then start to figure out our positioning of this. We'll start to plug everything in. I have the main harness all hooked up to all the sensors. Obviously, I still have a lot of cleanup work to do. There are a couple of kind of just plain wire connections I need to make now. So we have these 3 wires, red, a green, and a blue with a white stripe. Red is going to be a good battery, 12 volt positive. That actually runs through a fuse and then allows us to run, I believe, the injectors, and then also gives us a pretty high current output for our fuel pump. I believe this is only rated for maybe 15 amps or so though. Since I have a 525 liter per hour fuel pump, I'm going to continue to use my fuel pump relay that I already have wired in the car. So this green wire is just going to become my 12 volt trigger wire for my relay, and all the rest of that wiring is basically going to stay the same. So the red will go straight to the battery, green will go to my fuel pump relay, blue is actually for a tach output. So it's like a 12 volt tach. I don't run a tach in this car right now, so we're just gonna zip tie that out of the way and make sure it's, you know, in a safe place so that when we install gauges, we'll have, you know, it ready to go. The only other thing I need to hook in is this optional inputs and outputs. The reason I need to do that is because I need a trigger to run our electric fans. So I will use the number 1 output. That will be a ground trigger. That will go to the ground side of our 2 relays that run our 2 electric fans. That way the fans know when to turn on and when to turn off. And that's going to be, I believe, all of the connections under the hood. Only thing left to connect inside the car is a switched 12 volt power and then a ground. I set my car up with a nice solid chassis ground distribution block, and I also have, kind of tucked under the dash, is a switched 12 volt straight from the ignition. That is a power distribution block as well, so I can power on any kind of accessories I want exactly for this scenario. So I'll be able to just put 2 ring terminals on there, and that'll be super easy connection. So I'm going to knock out those last 4 or 5 things, and then we're ready to put power to the system, start to put in our initial settings, and getting closer and closer to firing this thing up. I believe I have all of the wiring connections done, so the last thing is this onboard vacuum reference line. A couple of different adapters come in the kit, just depending on what size line you're going to be running. I have an available vacuum source right here behind the throttle body. Just have it blocked off right now. So I'm going to pull that off, and I need to go digging around through my parts supply and see if I have enough of whatever size hose this is to run through the firewall and then back to that little adapter right into that blue hose where the ECU is going to be. If I don't have that, I'll have to run to the store real quick, but that in theory is the last connection I'll need to make before we can hook the battery back up and actually power up the system for the first time. Okay, we're in the car now. I should be able to turn the key and have this thing fire up for our initial settings. I have legitimately not tried it yet, so let's see what happens. Okay, lights on the ECU. Saw this flash. Okay. So it says perform TPS auto set reset before startup. Before we do that, Let me grab the little stylus that came with it real quick. You can use your fingers, but it'll be a little bit easier with this. So, so this vehicle should be ready to be started. I'm going to set you guys up on a camera outside as well. Let's see how this goes. All right, did another quick visual inspection. Everything looks good. Let's see how the first start goes. Doing pretty darn well. So I couldn't have asked for a better first startup. The only thing I've had to adjust is there's a little T15 Torx screw underneath here, and what the instructions tell you to do is just to adjust that screw until the throttle blade indicates a between 2 and 10% on your idle air control valve. That way it can adjust the idle with that valve. You know, if you have that blade adjusted improperly, sometimes it won't be able to get the idle low enough. Sometimes it'll be too low and you'll be at, you know, 70, 80, 90% of your idle air control kind of movement range. So that 2 to 10% is where the engine or the ECU can actually control the idle more accurately. So that was, you know, a couple of minutes to get that set up, and then we're ready to go. So the instructions say the next thing to do is to drive the car. And what I'm supposed to do is vary a lot in RPM and different, you know, speeds and different gears. Try to give the ECU, you know, a broad range to learn from. And then of course, as I drive the car more and more, in theory, it will get better and better and better as we go. But it's already idling better than what I was able to pull off with the old system, so I'm pretty stoked on that. So what I'm gonna do is just spend a little bit of time now cleaning up the wiring, then I'm gonna get in the car and we're gonna take this thing around. So you'll have to excuse how I look. I know I'm hot and sweaty. I just got back from my, I don't know, 45-minute to an hour drive, and my reviews are in, and I'm so ecstatic. I'm stoked on this setup. It is light years better than my old Mega Squirt setup already, and I literally have driven the car exactly one time, and I can tell that the self-learning on this is either way more advanced or it's just set up better than what I did. And it's getting better and better and better. Every start from a red light, every, you know, gear change, I could tell that it was just getting smoother and doing what it's supposed to do and kind of tune for me. I have no doubt that a competent tuner would have been able to get fantastic results out of the Mega Squirt system. I know there's, you know, thousands of cars running around with that setup that everybody seems to be happy with. This was much better for me because, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I am not what you would call a competent tuner. So I needed a system that's a bit more intuitive. It's going to take some of the guesswork out of it. It's going to be, you know, plug and play truly. And, you know, I think this is going to end up working out great. When I get more, you know, confident with my tuning and we're going to the drag strip, we end up turboing the car. This system is completely capable of, you know, 100% custom tunes all the way down to every cell of the VE table. Like, you can get that granular with this system, but you don't have to. And that's the beauty. Our current setup is not that complicated. So I don't need to go like full custom nerdy tune on it. I just need something that's nice, drivable, The car runs well. I stopped and got gas, fired right back up. You don't know how exciting that is until you've done a project like this and you continue to have issues with it over and over and over again. It's yeah, it's great. I know I'm rambling on, but I'm excited. So I'm gonna call it there for this video. I hope this kind of takes away any worries or something like that if you guys were thinking about the Terminator X system. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask below. I will help as much as I possibly can. I appreciate you guys watching as always, and I'll see you on the next one.